The 2026 Toyota LandCruiser 300 Performance Hybrid is the most powerful LandCruiser Toyota has ever built, and it just broke a promise that hybrids have kept for 25 years. Every other hybrid on the road was created to save fuel. This one was created to add muscle. For the first time in the model's long history, Toyota slid an electric motor inside its most sacred machine, the truck that crosses deserts, outlasts governments, and comes home when nothing else will. But it did not use that motor to sip fuel. It used it to hit harder. 457 horsepower. In a LandCruiser. That is not a typo. So one question hangs over everything you are about to see. Why would Toyota build a hybrid that actually drinks more fuel than the diesel sitting right beside it in the showroom? Stay with me, because the answer completely changes what you think this truck is even for. Start with what was at stake, because that is what makes this a gamble and not just an upgrade. The LandCruiser is not simply another Toyota. More than 12 million have been sold since 1951 across more than 190 countries. It is the vehicle aid convoys trust, the one that appears where the tarmac ends, the one a family buys once and hands down to their children. To understand the gamble, look at what Toyota was up against. Tightening emissions rules were closing in on the big diesel, and rivals were arriving with electrified muscle of their own. Toyota could have answered with a modest, apologetic hybrid that simply ticked a box. Instead, it treated electrification as a chance to make the LandCruiser hit harder than it ever has. Even the letters GR on that grade badge come straight from Toyota's racing division, and they were not chosen by accident. And here is the first surprise. From the outside, you can barely tell any of this happened. Park the performance hybrid beside the diesel, and the silhouette is almost untouched. The tall, upright side profile still fills your mirror and blocks out the sun. The blunt nose still wears that wide, ladder-strong grille, with the Toyota badge planted dead center like a stamp of intent. Slim, rectangular headlights sit either side of it, calm and unbothered, the face of a machine with nothing left to prove to anyone. Down the flanks, the wheels are pushed hard into each corner for the best angles when the ground falls away. The body sits flat and deliberate, built to be loaded to the roof and driven across a continent. At the rear, the upright tailgate and vertical lights stay square on purpose, because square is what swallows a spare, a fridge, and a week of luggage. That restraint is the whole point. Toyota did not want you to spot the change from across a car park. In the GR Sport grade, you get the harder off-road hardware and a blacked-out, purposeful look. In the plush Sahara ZX, you get more chrome and polish. But under both, the real story is hidden beneath the metal. It is finally time to open it up. So here is what the engineers actually did. They took the twin-turbo V6 petrol engine, and rather than chase fuel figures, they bolted a single electric motor between that engine and the 10-speed automatic gearbox. That location sounds like a small detail. It is the entire idea. Because the motor lives right there in the driveline, its shove arrives the very instant your foot moves, filling the half-second of hesitation that turbochargers always leave behind. Toyota says throttle response sharpens by roughly 40% compared with the diesel. In a truck weighing close to 6,000 pounds, that is the gap between hoping a space in traffic will open and simply deciding to take it. Then come the numbers that crown it the most powerful LandCruiser ever sold. The combined system produces 457 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque, roughly 150 horsepower more than the diesel most owners have lived with for years. It hauls itself from rest to 60 miles per hour in about 6 seconds, where the old diesel needed closer to 7.5. Roll onto the throttle and the whole vehicle gathers, then surges, calm and enormous, like a freight train that just remembered it was running late. Out on the open road, that muscle turns the daily grind into something almost effortless. Slot into a gap on the motorway, ask for an overtake, and there is none of the old downshift shuffle, none of the waiting for the turbos to wake up. The response is just there, immediate and unbothered. The way a much smaller car feels, but a truck this size has no right to. There is real cleverness in how it all knits together. A clutch sits between the petrol 5.6 and the electric motor, so the two can push together when you want to shove, or hand off when you do not. Lift off the throttle or brush the brakes, and the motor flips into a generator, scavenging the energy that used to vanish as heat and feeding it back into the small battery. There is no plug to hunt for and no charging to plan around, because this hybrid tops up its own battery as it drives. You simply steer, and the system does the arithmetic on its own. And yet, at a crawl, below about 20 miles per hour. It can slide along on the electric motor alone, completely silent. That is exactly what you want when you are picking a careful line over rock, or easing out of a sleeping campsite before the sun is even up. If it fascinates you that the most cautious brand on earth just built its wildest engine yet, take a moment and subscribe. Pulling decisions like this one apart is the entire reason this channel exists. But I promised you a catch, and it is a real one. This is the moment the word performance stops being a badge and starts being a bill. Because the battery and motor were tuned for power instead of thrift, the performance hybrid returns only around 24 miles per gallon on the official test. The diesel it is, based on slips closer to 26. Read that again. The hybrid uses more fuel, not less. It also asks for more money, roughly $8,900 more than the equivalent diesel, which lands at just over $156,000 in Australia. And there is a physical cost too. To make room for the battery beneath the boot floor, Toyota had to drop the spare wheel a little lower, which shaves a few degrees off the departure angle at the very back. Now here is the honest defense, because none of that was an accident. Toyota never once sold this as the frugal option. It deliberately kept the diesel on sale for the buyers who count every liter, and it aimed this hybrid squarely at the ones who want the muscle instead. The battery is fully sealed and waterproofed, so the truck still wades through nearly 30 inches of water, exactly like every LandCruiser before it. The brake towing figure does not move at all, holding firm at 7,700 pounds. You give up a sliver of economy. You keep every ounce of the capability that made the badge worth trusting. And the moment you climb inside, that trade starts to make a very different kind of sense. The cabin is where the LandCruiser quietly turned into a luxury car, while the rest of us were still arguing about engines. You sit high and commanding, looking out over a flat bonnet that stretches ahead like a runway. The dashboard is wide, logical, and refreshingly free of gimmicks. It is built around a large central touchscreen, flanked by real physical switches for the jobs your hands need to do without looking down. The seats are deep and genuinely supportive, the kind you can trust across a 12-hour drive, and the wheel sits thick and honest in your grip. In the Sahara ZX especially, the materials reach toward true luxury, soft hide, and cool metal, yet every surface is still bolted down as though it expects to be shaken loose one day. It is a living room that happens to be built like a bunker. There is room for the whole family in here as well, with 3 rows of seats and enough space in the middle row to stretch out on a long drive. This was always built to carry 7 people and their world to the far end of a map, and that part of the brief has not changed one bit. Because underneath all that comfort, the fundamentals never went soft. This is still a body-on-frame truck riding on full-time 4-wheel drive, and the GR Sport adds electronic locking differentials at both ends for the terrain that swallows normal cars whole. And the hard numbers back up the promise. It clears the ground by 9¼ inches and noses into obstacles at an approach angle of 32 degrees, the kind of geometry that turns a washed-out track into a mild inconvenience. Toyota even fits a crawl control system that meters the throttle and brakes for you, so you can keep both hands on the wheel and steer up something that should frighten you. The extra low-down punch from the electric motor is not there for bragging. Instant torque at walking pace is precisely what you crave when you are inching up a loose, broken climb with a heavy trailer dragging behind you. That blend is exactly why this thing stands almost alone in its corner of the market. The new Nissan Patrol is cheaper and hugely capable, but it cannot answer this drivetrain's instant response. The Rover Defender feels more modern and more fashionable inside, yet it still cannot borrow the Toyota's decades-deep reputation for simply never stopping. The Ineos Grenadier is rawer and more old-school, more tool than lounge. In some markets, it even sizes up against full-size American metal, like the GMC Yukon. And the Lexus LX, once you strip away the jewelry, is really the same machine wearing an evening gown. Against every one of them, the LandCruiser plays its oldest and strongest card, the quiet certainty that it will still be starting long after the others are up on a hoist. So we arrive back at the question we opened with. Why on earth build a hybrid that drinks more, not less? Because Toyota was never trying to build an economy car here. It was trying to make certain that when the world finally pushed its icon toward electric power, the LandCruiser did not turn up softer, slower, or apologetic. It turned up stronger. This is a hybrid that spent its battery on courage instead of fuel, and by doing exactly that, it kept the single promise that has ever really mattered to a LandCruiser owner. It will still climb the mountain. It will just reach the summit a good deal sooner than it used to. For a certain kind of buyer, that is worth every cent. For the one who bought a LandCruiser to save money at the pump, this was never the version for them, and Toyota clearly knows it. Whether all that muscle is worth the premium over the diesel is the decision only your wallet can make. And if you want to see how this LandCruiser measures up against the all-new Nissan Patrol that is gunning straight for it, that head-to-head is ready and waiting for you next.